We're about a month out from the NFL draft. So teams right now, for the most part, are setting their personnel outside of maybe a couple one of these big trades, outside of maybe a, a vet signing, like Odell Beckham's still out there, like something like that, right? Which could have an impact, but a little bit more wild card for fantasy. So
Yep.
it kind of feels like we have a clear understanding of whose fantasy stock right now is up and whose fantasy stock is down. I think it's a good opportunity for us to take an assessment of where these guys are before the NFL draft. It allows us to move some guys up and down our board. It allows us to think, okay, maybe this guy's a fade for me. Maybe this guy's a priority target. The NFL draft can change a lot, right? But for the most part, this feels pretty settled. So, Aidan, after all of this has happened, I think it's time. I think it's time we go stock up, stock down. So,
Let's do this then.
okay, let's do it. So, Aidan, what guy do you think has had his fantasy stock improved the most since NFL free agency started?
The most. I think I'm going to go with Rashaad Penny on this one to get us going here. I think Rashaad Penny fell into the perfect situation in Philadelphia. He's shown time and time again he is a quality 3-down back, averaging just shy of 6 yards a carry over his time in Seattle. A couple tough injuries and Kenneth Walker coming into the mix was not ideal, but I think it's such a big win for both of those guys. Kenneth Walker has such a clear-cut, workhorse role there now in Seattle, and Rashaad Penny behind that Philadelphia line and Jalen Hurts and company in the passing game. There is such a clear path to 1,000+ yards, RB2 potential finish. I think his stock is soaring this year. I'm going to be looking for stock in him anywhere I can in teams this year. What do you think about Rashaad Penny? I'm pretty bullish on him right now.
It was one of my favorite signings of free agency. This is a guy who's always been hurt, unfortunately. But when he's been on the field, like you said, it's just been an absolute monster. He
Beast.
is, what would we say? I'd say a large human who's also very fast. I'd say that's how I'd describe Rashaad Penny.
Yep.
The Eagles' offensive line, the best in the business. I don't know if you saw, they just re-upped Lane Johnson. So, I mean, he's going to be there for at least like 3-4 more years. So that's awesome for them, that continuity. He's going to be involved in that read action running game. He's not really a receiving running back, so it's a really good fit because Jalen Hurts isn't going to dump the ball off to running backs. He's just going to go get those yards himself with his feet. It's like it's a really good stylistic match. And yeah, if he can stay healthy, he can stay healthy. But this is the type of move that Howie Roseman and the Eagles front office is going to do. They're going to look for value. They're not going to overpay on a position that they don't think is premium. And they're going to bring in someone with all the talent in the world that has injury concerns. And they might draft somebody in the 3rd, 4th round, but I think anyone immediately is going to hurt Rashaad Penny's draft stock. And
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think this is a great signing for everyone involved. Prove it deal for Penny, but he doesn't have a ton of carries. He doesn't have a ton of miles on him because of these injuries. But the injury list is intense. He broke his leg, he's torn his ACL.
It's starting to add up a little. It's getting longer than you'd like.
We're talking one season, right? In redraft next year, you're going to take Rashaad Penny in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, depending on where his value settles. Maybe the 7th.
That 5 to 6 range, I'd feel comfortable doing, and it could be an absolute steal. There's just such a clear role for him to get a handful of targets. They're going to be in the red zone often. If Jalen Hurts isn't getting pushed in at the 1-yard line, there's a lot of opportunities for him to score. And score often, in my opinion.
Kenny Gainwell too. If this helps him, he looked good at the end of last year. He looked good in the playoffs.
Yep.
Rashaad Penny's always hurt, so
yeah,
it is a sharp move to be in on Gainwell as well. I think it's a good move.
That's a nice little cuff. Yeah. That's a nice little cuff.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. I think in terms of just stock price appreciation, Rashaad Penny's stock absolutely soaring. Considering, if he lands on the Commanders, he's like a 12th round pick. So now he's on the Eagles.
That's a disaster.
That's a great one. In terms of my favorite stock up so far, I got to go with Dak Prescott, man. I know that sounds crazy, and immediately you're not going to think so Dak Prescott, you're drafting above Joe Burrow, right? I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that Dak Prescott in the divisional round last year was throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, Noah Brown, Michael Gallup still recovering from his ACL on one leg, and the ghost of T.Y. Hilton. It's not that great, Aidan. It's
great.
Really not that great.
That's tough.
That's tough considering that he used to have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. So next season, Dak Prescott is now freed from the shackles of Ezekiel Elliott. He's gone. So maybe Dak Prescott will have a more efficient, better running back to throw to on a consistent basis. Maybe Dak Prescott gets more QB sneak touchdowns, right? Then now he's going to be thrown to Brandon Cooks, who's that perfect flanker wide receiver to complement CeeDee Lamb. He's going to have Michael Gallup, I'd say, like fully recovered from this ACL injury. If you look at Michael Gallup's contract and how they structured it, they barely paid him anything last year in terms of guaranteed money because I don't think they were expecting him to contribute that much post ACL. So this is
a tough ask.
A big year for Michael Gallup, who I think is a great wide receiver in the role that he plays. Healthy Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, and Brandon Cooks is an awesome trio. Now, they did lose Dalton Schultz, but this gives them an opportunity to maybe replace Schultz in the draft with one of these dynamic rookie tight ends. Maybe they draft Bijan Robinson. I don't know. But I think Arrow's up for this entire offense. And like I said, do I think Dak is going to be better than Joe Burrow next year? Probably not. But Joe Burrow is going to be a 5th round, 6th round pick, or Dak Prescott's going to be like an 8th or 9th round pick. And he's a guy that if you wait at quarterback next year, I think he's going to be really good. And I think he's going to pay off well. And instead of having to draft, a sexual predator into Deshaun Watson, you could just take Dak Prescott, all-around good guy, and they're going to do very similar stuff. So I think it's a win-win. Again, I don't know if his stock is going to scream up draft boards on Underdog and Best Ball, or it's going to scream up in redraft, but I think a really smart move next season is going to be drafting Dak Prescott. Like, if you don't get your Mahomes, you don't get your Allen, like, you kind of just wait, Prescott's going to be there, and I think he's going to be a great value because of these additions. But what do you think about the addition? Because, again, Brandon Cooks stock up, too. I mean, this is really ideal for him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've got I had Dak / Brandon Cooks on my list as kind of a package deal there in terms of stock up. I think, like you said, that offense was missing a true second target. There was just something missing. CeeDee Lamb, awesome year, especially down the stretch. Once Dak returned, it's like that's a bona fide wide receiver one in that offense, but the absence of Amari Cooper and Gallup not being fully up to speed was really a huge hit and felt like that offense ran out of gas. Totally. So Brandon Cooks sliding in as that wide receiver 2, finally being freed from Houston, and a fully recovered Michael Gallup. This is going to be a really fun offense. And like you said, Dak is probably the biggest beneficiary here. Is like, it just feels like all the pieces are in place again. They're going to add more in the draft because Jerry Jones is a sicko, and he's just ready to roll. They're going to take an RB or a tight end, like you said. There's probably another piece coming into that offense, but that's going to be good value there with Dak Prescott. That's, in my opinion, going to be one of the safer picks in terms of, like, that's going to be a top 5 or top 10 offense, and Dak Prescott, he's the guy that runs it. So, in my opinion, that's a safe QB pick later on once you miss out of those true, bona fide QB ones in that tier 1, where Dak Prescott's going to be sitting there, maybe cuff it with one of those wide receiver you get, and I think you're sitting pretty.
Cowboys fans, cover your ears, but they're a dark horse Super Bowl contender. The NFC is weak. The Eagles aren't going to be as good as they were last year. The 49ers don't have a quarterback. It is wide open, and that offense is going to be good. I think the only person that can stop Dak Prescott next year is going to be Mike McCarthy, who's calling the plays, which is...
We'll see.
Makes me a little nervous to get super excited about Dak because of Mike McCarthy, but we can't control that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Speaking of stock down, it's not all good stuff, unfortunately. I wish we could just focus on the good stuff. Someone whose stock has just absolutely cratered. Imagine you bought it 3-4 years ago and it's an all-time high, and you're like, I got a blue chip investment here. Turns out, it's Silicon Valley Bank, and the Silicon Valley Bank of fantasy football right now is Ezekiel Elliott, man. This is tough for Zeke. Yesterday we got a tweet from Adam Schefter saying Zeke had narrowed down his list of teams to the Eagles, the Bengals, and the Jets. And I'm thinking, wow, Zeke's got a good market, Aidan.
Zeke's wanted.
These are all pretty solid landing spots. They all probably see the value in Zeke on a cheap deal, maybe be their goal line back. He's a good blocker. It all works. And then a couple hours later, someone close to the Philadelphia Eagles organization comes out and says the Eagles have never spoken with Zeke, and that this was more of a wish list. Oh boy. Oh boy.
It's tough. It's tough.
Oh, wow.
It's tough being a running back in today's NFL. It's just like Zeke a couple years ago was such a slam dunk first round pick, and now it's like I don't even want to look at him. I don't care where he lands. It's just like I am not touching it with a 10-foot stick. It's like I don't want it. Geez. I don't want it.
Zeke rushed for 1,300 yards 3 times in his first 4 seasons, and he would have been 4 if it wasn't for that suspension that he had. He was a 2-time All-Pro in his first 3 years, and he's now at the point in his career where he's making up fake girlfriends who go to other schools, so he's not embarrassed to tell his buddies that no one likes him. Yeah, oh, you don't know her? My girlfriend? She goes to the school across town.
Super cool.
This guy was a 4th-round, 5th-round pick last year. Like, just last year, he was a 4th-round, 5th-round pick. He's going to be a 3rd-string running back in the NFL next year.
It's pretty sad to see. That stock is down. If you still hold him in Dynasty, like, you're not getting anything for Ezekiel Elliott anymore. That's a guy that you might be cutting in a year or two, and you're not getting anything back.
Like, best case scenario, he latches onto a good team, and he's a goal line back. Like, that
falls into 8 touchdowns, maybe.
That's the best case scenario. Like, the role that Damian Harris is going to have for the Bills would have been best case scenario. But I think the issue with Zeke versus Damian Harris is that Damian Harris has some juice, and Zeke is just a corpse, unfortunately.
Yep. Not ideal.
Outside of Zeke, who's somebody that stock is way down for you?
I'm going to save one for you, which is an absolute no-brainer. I'm going to talk about someone who is also just completely out of juice, in my opinion, who we've also spoken about, and it's Adam Thielen.
Oh, jeez.
His
bank account's up. His bank account's way up.
It's like it's time to take Old Yeller out back. Adam Thielen, going into his age 33 season, is going from wide receiver 2 in offense with Kirk Cousins, who by no means is some elite quarterback, but, absolutely feeds that passing attack, for the last couple of years, with the exception of last year, has done very well by the means of Adam Thielen. And he's now going to Carolina and is expected to be the wide receiver 1 with C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. Anthony Thielen at age 33, or even before age 33, was never wide receiver 1. And to be expected at this age with a rookie QB, I'm not touching Adam Thielen. There is no amount that you could pay me. There is, he's no longer draftable, in my opinion, to where I'd feel good about holding him. Does he get volume in that offense? Absolutely. He's likely going to get a ton of volume. Will that equate to anything in terms of fantasy relevance? I have a hard time believing that. What are your thoughts on Adam Thielen? I know you're very high on him.
No, I've been pretty anti. If you follow us on TikTok or follow us on Twitter, and I've gotten people, the angry Minnesota fans, tweeting at me. It's like, listen, Adam Thielen's had a wonderful career. I mean, I think he was an undrafted free agent. He's like a Minnesota homegrown kid.
Yeah, he's a local kid.
He's been doing it for close to a decade. He had a run there. In 2017, 2018, he was one of the best receivers in all of the NFL. 1,200 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's been super banged up since 2019, missing a ton of time.
He's in his 30s. That happens. He's in his 30s.
In 2020, again, he was a league winner for a lot of people because he had 14 touchdowns. He scored a ton of touchdowns. He's had a great career. But if you start to look at his efficiency numbers, like yards per route run, which is a stat I reference all the time. Again, how many routes do you actually run with how many yards do you actually get? And he had one of the worst yards per route run in the NFL for anyone that gets real run. He averaged 1.08 yards per route run, which is bad, dude. It is not good. It means he's running a ton of routes. And I think best case scenario for Adam Thielen last year is basically having the season that he just had. 70 catches, 716 yards, 6 touchdowns. Now, I've heard some theories from really smart people that say that Thielen may get moved back into the slot more. So it might be a little bit easier for him to create a little separation and get yards. But again,
he's a great route runner.
best case scenario is he gets like 800 yards, I think, and maybe catches
And I
like
feel like
8 touchdowns.
Yeah, that feels like a generous ceiling, but yeah, that feels like a pretty fair evaluation of kind of a best case scenario, which for fantasy purposes, that's not doing you a whole lot of good. He's probably riding your bench and he's maybe filling in on a bye for you, or you're injured, you're banged up.
I don't think I'll be hitting the draft button for Adam Thielen, but I think in real life, great.
I will not.
Great signing.
Oh,
great.
Dude. And he's had a great career. Yeah. No one's taken away what he's done, but it's like, it's that point in his career and this new situation where this is no longer a want of mine.
Another guy who's had a great career, whose stock is cratering, is Mike Evans. Mike Evans. I was pulling some stats up, Aidan. Mike Evans came into the league in 2013. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Mike Evans comes into the NFL. Let's see. 2014 is his first year in the NFL. Mike Evans has not finished outside of the top 24 in PPR once in his career. He has been a wide receiver 2 or better every single year of his career, which is insane.
He's so underrated. It's like, I don't get like why people aren't consistently higher on him and putting in that conversation of, like the best receiver. Like he's probably on a Hall of Fame pace at this point. Like
100%. 100%.
He's consistently produces, but to your point around the cratering, Baker Mayfield is going to ruin him.
Oh, no.
And there's really no nice way to put this. Mike Evans is in danger.
I'm in danger. Chuckles. I'm in danger.
I'm in danger. Like, I think Chris Godwin doesn't take as big of a dip because of the style he plays with some of the more short to intermediate stuff. But when you look at Mike Evans, when you get those 40-point weeks because he's hitting 2 40-yard touchdowns, like that doesn't feel like an option anymore with Baker Mayfield. Like those boom games just don't feel likely anymore. And like you said, for that reason, where do you think he goes this year?
Oh, that's tough because I think there's this factor of we don't know if Kyle Trask is any good. So maybe because Baker's not playing the full season. Like there's
he's gonna start.
No
you
way.
would think
he's gonna
right?
start. I think he'll start.
But I think he gets benched as well. Yeah,
he kind of rehabilitated his image with the Rams a little bit. So by all accounts, Baker has a little bit of juice or at least a little bit of equity right now in NFL locker rooms. But oh, dude, I don't know. Like, look at these numbers. Baker's had 2 true wide receiver ones that he's thrown to in his career. Right? He's thrown to OBJ and he's thrown to DJ Moore. So here are DJ Moore's stats with and without Baker Mayfield. DJ Moore's averaged 13 fantasy points per game without Baker Mayfield. Pretty good. That's pretty damn good, Aidan. When you say 13 points per game.
That's a good game.
Yeah. DJ Moore averaged 7.5 fantasy points per game last season when Baker Mayfield.
He's a criminal. He's an absolute criminal.
OBJ in his career without Baker Mayfield, 19.2 fantasy points per game. Pretty good.
Oh, I don't want to hear this.
Pretty good. OBJ averaged 11.3 fantasy points per game with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Now, again, OBJ had injuries, right? Rehabbing. He's not the same player as he was at the beginning of his career with the Giants. The data skews a little bit. But those are 2 really good wide receivers that have just cratered with Baker as quarterback.
No, he's a wide receiver 1 killer. I'm not touching. I'm likely not dabbling in that offense whatsoever, aside from Godwin, if it's at the right price. But Mike Evans, unless you take unless it's an absolute slod,
the only
I don't
way,
have a ton of interest there.
The only way I feel a little bit better is if Will Levis falls. There's some talk that Levis falls in this draft.
That'd be fun.
If Levis ends up on the Buccaneers, again, is Levis going to light it up some superstar? I don't know. But you've compared him to Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill
more than serviceable
was able to get the ball
prime.
to Corey Davis and A.J. Brown, no problem. So
absolutely.
I would feel a little bit better about that. I don't know if Kyle Trask is good. Anyone that says he is probably his parents, right? Like, how would you know? I don't know. My guess is that he isn't. That's my guess. Now, I could be wrong, but my hunch is Godwin may be fine because of volume in the slot. Godwin's also younger, year removed from his ACL injury. But fact that both of them exist with Baker Mayfield makes it really hard.
Yeah, I'm fading that. Baker Mayfield, no thank you.
If Mike Evans puts up another 1,000-yard receiving season with Baker as his quarterback, give him the golden jacket.
Yeah, that's the final boss.
Give it
officially.
Give it to him.
Yeah.
All right, I have one more stock down, but we've been a little negative. Why don't we turn the corner here? Let's talk about a guys that we're feeling good about drafting next year.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get one more. Let's get another stock up. Who do you have?
Let's do it. So I know you guys have already talked about this one a bit, especially with Keegan. Garrett Wilson's got to be one of the biggest offseason winners, assuming that this Aaron Rodgers deal goes through. With the quarterbacks of Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and Mike White last year, he still went for 83 catches, 1,100 yards, and 4 touchdowns. There's pretty much no excuse why Garrett Wilson isn't a wide receiver 1 next year with Aaron Rodgers. It's like there is such a clear path to that, and I think he is going to go rather high. In drafts this year, probably looking at, a second rounder. In redraft formats, I think second, maybe third at the low. And if he's there in the third round, you better be absolutely sprinting with your draft card to your commissioner, because that's silly. But in my opinion, Garrett Wilson, it feels like absolutely primed for a wide receiver 1 breakout season and really solidifying himself in that, tier of up and coming young wide receivers.
Ooh, I am excited. I'm trying to rack my brain. Is there an example of, Aaron Rodgers playing in an offense with Nathaniel Hackett as his offensive coordinator, throwing to an incredibly talented receiver wearing the number 17, where Alan Lazard's the wide receiver 2, and they have a shifty small slot wide receiver like Randall Cobb or McCole Hardman? Do we have an example of that
I think I've seen this movie before. Okay. I think I've seen this movie before.
I think so too, and we're making the comparison to Davante Adams. I just think it's just such a slam dunk to compare, Wilson with Adams. Really comparable tacticians, route runners, really skilled players. I don't care that Aaron Rodgers doesn't like to throw the ball to young players. This is Garrett Wilson, all right?
It's Garrett Wilson. Like, that is his wide receiver 1. He is going to force feed him the rock. He's always open. Like, he's going to get the ball. He's going to get probably 10 targets a game. What do you think? Like, it's going to be a very good opportunity for Garrett Wilson.
Davante averaged 11 targets per game from 2018 to 2021.
Yep, there. Yeah, it's like there's no reason why Garrett Wilson doesn't command that same target share. There's just no reason.
It's so exciting. The year 1 to year 2 jump. Garrett Wilson's ability to beat any type of coverage, man, press man, zone. Aaron Rodgers, I think, will rebound. It's a better offense.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be a good offense.
I think so too. I think
it'll be a really good offense.
I think it'll be a good offense. Hopefully Rodgers is taking his offseason a little more seriously than he did last year.
He was in a darkness retreat, so
it's fine.
Not very serious.
I don't even know about that. Is he just working out? Because I heard he showed up to camp a little bit,
Oh,
yeah, out of shape. That was one of the issues that he had. But I think it's hard not to look at this and see, okay, even if they sign OBJ, which is a possibility, right? You're penciling on 160 to 180 targets for Garrett Wilson, and I just don't know how he doesn't absolutely smash with that kind of volume.
It feels like a slam dunk pick. I'll be looking to get my hands on Garrett Wilson and at least one of my leagues this year.
Do you think he's a dark horse to finish as wide receiver 1? Dark horse. I'm not saying like a favorite here. I'm just saying.
Yeah, like it's not out of the realm of possibilities given like the target potential and what he's shown last year with a poor QB cast, to put it nicely. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. Do I think he's going to jump guys like JJ or Chase or even Cut coming back? No, but
he could.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
I'd feel better penciling him in as like a top 5 guy and like putting my money there. But like you said, he gets 160, 180 targets and he stays healthy. Aaron Rodgers plays at the MVP level that we've seen him play at. It is extremely possible.
It's tasty.
Yeah, it's
these year 2 wide receivers. It's looking really solid for them. It's looking Chris Olave looks like a huge stock up. I am really
Yeah, I had
excited
him on
about
my
him.
board too,
Yeah,
actually.
Olave looks really exciting. Drake
Yep.
London looks really exciting. Yeah, hopefully, I think we're a year away from them figuring out who their franchise quarterback is, but Heineke Ritter
Yeah.
is much better than Marcus Mariota, which is just
that's
sad.
that was a sad experiment there.
You've got Traylon Burks too, who maybe they draft somebody at 11. Doesn't really seem like a Vrabel pick.
Yeah,
but
that feels like a year way too. But like, he's so talented.
He's
it's
talented.
like
and what's the
I'd
target
love to see.
What's the target competition? Right? He's kind of
It's like he's the clear cut dude there. Like
a lot of these guys, I think, aren't seeing a lot of increased competition coming into the building or getting an upgraded quarterback, which is pretty ideal. And you brought up Olave. Like, what makes you really excited about Olave?
It's the Derek Carr deep ball for me. It's just Derek Carr in general. Andy Dalton was actually a lot better than people thought last year. Like pretty like league average quarterback. Like, he was fine. Like, there were bigger problems on the Saints roster than Andy Dalton. Like, he wasn't taking them to like championship levels. Yeah, there were bigger problems than Andy Dalton, but Derek Carr, especially with the deep ball accuracy, I think is going to be a huge boost for Chris Olave. I think, again, he should go for over 1,000 yards. He's going to have a couple of those just big time plays, 50, 60-yard bombs. He is so slippery when he gets to the back end of the secondary. Like,
yeah.
I think he's going to have a couple of those bombs with Derek Carr, which are going to be awesome. It's kind of a match made in heaven with his skill set and Derek Carr, I think.
We just saw Derek Carr force feed Davante Adams 180 targets. So I feel pretty confident that Derek Carr is good enough to have Chris Olave smash. I guess I'm curious, Olave or Wilson?
For me, it's got to be Wilson. But I don't think they should be far off on your big board. If you've got Olave more than 5-10 slots on your wide receiver rankings behind Wilson, like I think that's a problem. Because he showed talent wise, like one at Ohio State, one last year, like they look like 1A and 1B. Flop them on other teams. It's really just situation for me with I think Aaron Rodgers potential over Derek Carr is it's really just a situation for me with Wilson.
Okay. Another stock up for me, Skyy Moore and Kadarius Toney. I'm kind of bucketing them in the same group because I can't commit to one or the other. But I just can't. But JuJu Smith-Schuster, who people give a lot of shit, was pretty good for the Chiefs last year. I mean, he definitely played
especially
his role.
Down the stretch. He played really well during the second half of the season in the playoffs.
He had some juice. He was able to separate, was able to beat zone. He had some good yak ability. Like, he played really well. Now, again, was he supported by the best ecosystem in all of football with Patrick Mahomes? Of course. But given the circumstances, he played pretty well. And if he looked really good, I think it is a really strong possibility that one of Skyy Moore or Kadarius Toney is going to jump up in the top 24 wide receivers in the NFL in terms of fantasy. They take JuJu's 7.2 targets per game. Maybe you split them in half. I don't know. But these guys
5-2, yeah.
5 and 5 each for these guys. And both of these guys have home run hitting ability. Both of these guys are great after the catch. Both have some inconsistencies. Kadarius Toney is a walking inconsistency, to say the least. And
that's a nice way to put it.
Skyy Moore wears the number 24. So what are we doing, Skyy? But outside of that, I think both of these guys are young. Both of these guys are good. Both of these guys have some juice. And just one of them is going to have to stick, right? And when you pair that with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, you're looking at someone who could be electric. So I guess my question for you, Aidan, which one would you rather have next year?
So I'm gonna go on just like higher ceiling. And I'd probably go Toney personally, but I think it is far riskier in terms of the two. If I had to say like who has the safer floor, is probably Skyy Moore if I had to guess. But I think like league winner potentially would probably be Kadarius Toney. His skill set is so unique to where like he's no Tyreek Hill, but to imagine him playing a type of role where, he's getting jet sweeps, he's catching these bombs, he's kind of just all over the place, matchup nightmare. I see that in Kadarius Toney. if you're going for like real boom potential, it's Kadarius Toney. I think there's far more potential to like really break out and like potentially be, like a wide receiver 2. Whereas I think Skyy more higher floor, but I think the ceiling is far more limited with his skill set. But again, who knows? They're both extremely talented, and it feels like we really haven't even really tapped into either of their potential yet. They both really started to come on stronger in the season with some of the injuries to their wide receivers. So we'll see. But I think regardless, like you said, stock is certainly up for both of them. With JuJu and Hardman gone now, there's a lot of targets to go around.
Do you have any other stock ups before I go to my last stock down?
I was just going to say Justin Fields. But I don't feel like his stock in terms of fantasy really moved. I think he's probably already in there in that QB 5 to 8 in terms of fantasy. I think this helps him more as like a NFL quarterback in terms of his stock. Like, there's officially no excuses. Like, he needs to make the jump to be thrown for about 3,500 yards this year. And, the rushing numbers are going to dip. I don't want Justin Fields running for 1,000 yards. Like, that's never who he was before the NFL, and I don't think that's what he'll be this year. I think if he's, clocking in at 3,500 passing yards and, 600-700 rushing yards, that'd be my ideal situation now. But with DJ Moore and Tonyan, like, that offense is more than serviceable. Add in Foreman there to replace Montgomery. That's at least a league average offense. There's no excuses for QB1, but
I think
from a fantasy perspective,
I think it raises.
Probably didn't move the needle much, maybe up. Yeah, but like in terms of like your rankings, I think he was already kind of clear cut as QB 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on where you want to slot him after that. Those like core 4 at the top. Yeah. Okay. Because of the rushing upside purely. Yeah,
I think so. It's really tempting to put him in front of Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, and I think he could outscore those guys. I think Jalen Hurts, coming off the year he had, it's going to be really hard to continue the rushing touchdown efficiency. Completely. It's going to be really hard to repeat that kind of season he just had. But it's really hard to put him in front of those guys.
I think to the Garrett Wilson point, like, I don't think it'd be crazy if Justin Fields finished as QB1. We've shown like the last couple of years, like we've shown like the rushing upside with these QBs, like it completely propels them. It's just, what does his passing volume look like, and what does his passing efficiency look like? Because like you said, like the attempts are going to go up. The attempts are clearly going to go up. The line's going to be better. He's got better weapons to where like they're going to be throwing more. There's no way around that. It's just a matter of, what does that look like? If he can get to 3,500 yards through the air, he could have a monster season for fantasy purposes.
Year 2 to year 3 jump, better infrastructure, better offensive weapons. Hopefully we feel better about calling plays for him. And I'm pumped. I'm pumped about Justin. This is a very pro Justin Fields podcast.
We like Justin Fields in this household.
Yes, we do. I still can't believe the Niners didn't draft him. But here we go. Sam Darnold, baby. Okay. Speaking of rushing quarterbacks that have crazy upside, who have kind of had their careers take a bit of a turn, I mean, stock down has to be Lamar Jackson.
What are they doing? What are they doing, man?
He's one of my favorite players in all the NFL, but this Lamar contract situation's been super weird. Like, they floated out this name that sounded fake. What was it? Ken Francis is negotiating with the NFL teams, and the NFL PA is what have you heard about this Ken Francis thing?
Like it's like a spoof. Yeah, like this guy is trying to like make calls to negotiate as Lamar. The whole situation has been just like really ugly. Like, it's just, I've got a weird taste in my mouth. Just like how public he's kind of just getting dragged through the mud a little bit. Like, and all he's done is produce with close to nothing around him, year in and year out. I don't know. It's like he's just not getting his flowers whatsoever. And to your point, like, what if the Ravens done this offseason to make Lamar feel like, wow, like this is a better team? Like, they haven't added a single piece.
They can't, because they don't know how much they're paying their quarterback.
It's like, are we paying you, 50, 60 million? It's like, but yeah, even if they bring him back, dude, it's, I know we were talking the other day. It's like, it's the same exact offense.
Yeah, if you really loved the 2022 Ravens offense, you're gonna love the
wait till you
2023
see what
offense.
we've got in store for you. It's like
I mean, the bull case is you got J.K. Dobbins a year after the major knee injury, right? You've got Gus Edwards a year after the major knee injury. You've got Rashaad Bateman coming off of his Lisfranc injury. Rashaad Bateman's basically receiver Trey Lance. Like we don't know
what
if
is
he's good
he.
or
Yeah,
not.
his breakout game last year.
He could be really good.
That was special. That was special.
He was
special.
Vince McMahon meme. You got Devin Duvernay who broke his foot too. You've got Mark Andrews who was banged up all last year. Like Isaiah Likely. Like this offense is weird. Now they did bring in a new offensive coordinator who's got some juice. The guy who was Todd Monken, who was the offensive coordinator for Georgia, who was doing a pretty good job. But the lack of weapons is concerning.
Extremely.
The fact that this regime is probably going to take a wide receiver in the first round. How has that been working for them? Not great. And the Lamar thing is bizarre.
It's really weird. It's really weird, man.
But they don't want to pay him. They're kind of dragging him through the mud. He doesn't have an agent. This just isn't good vibes. And he may be fine next year. It might be special Lamar.
Yep.
Like, 'cause Lamar is just a freak. But in terms of how I feel about Lamar and the Ravens right now, at this moment, March 24th.
No, I don't feel great at all.
Not feeling great.
Yeah.
I mean, you can buy in on Rashaad Bateman for dirt cheap right now, and it may be a really good play in dynasty startups because, the volume's going to be there and he's super talented. But, man, it's tough.
They just handled this situation so poor. Like, you look around the NFL last couple of years and you look at, these up-and-coming young QBs who, their front offices go and get them help. You got Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, and it's like, it just felt like there was like never any attempt to get him like serious help at the wide receiver 1 position.
No.
And now we're going into where they're going to have to sink 50, 60 million into the cap on him. You've completely wasted his rookie QB deal, which, it's a gold mine. It's an absolute gold mine in today's NFL. And I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, he can easily still be a top 5 QB in fantasy, because of the rushing. Like when Lamar's on, it's like Lamar's on you. It's awesome. It's it's QB1 like whenever he wants to flip the switch. But that supporting cast stinks, and this whole situation is just it's really bizarre. I've never really seen anything like this.
Yeah. You got any more stock downs before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'll do one more. I know we touched on Davante Adams a little bit. Just kind of dabbling into that offense. I think I was really high on Jacoby Myers coming into the offseason. I was really interested in seeing where he landed. I honestly thought like maybe the Bears were a spot, just like somewhere that needed a wide receiver 1 that were like really lacking. Because I thought he really excelled in the Patriots offense because he was that clear dude. Target share, he was easily the best guy there. And going to the Raiders just doesn't feel very good for his fantasy purposes. Jimmy G is, like we know what Jimmy G is. He's a fine NFL quarterback, but, you're going to be behind Davante Adams, who's going to command a handful of targets. Like, is he going to even get more targets than Hunter Renfrow? Like, there's no telling what his, like, fantasy upside is. And for that reason, like, he's plummeted down my draft board personally. Really not someone I'm going to be targeting very highly. If you can get him in the late rounds, someone that's kind of just like a flyer at this point.
You're banking on injury, right? Like, or Davante Adams hates playing with Jimmy G and just says, goes home.
Because, like,
Jacoby's the guy.
I just don't see a world where, like, he's a wide receiver 2, even a wide receiver 3 in fantasy football with Hunter Renfrow, Davante Adams, and Jimmy G as his quarterback. So that was a bummer. I think for, like, the Raiders' offense purposes, like, good get. Solid wide receiver 2 next to Davante there on the outside, but for fantasy, I'm kind of out on Jacoby Adams or Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, and then Davante. I don't know how Davante finishes top 5 next year.
I don't see that world either.
He's gonna have to get his yak numbers way up. I mean, he caught 14 touchdowns last year. He had 9 touchdowns over 20 plus yards. Like efficiency-wise, I don't know how you repeat that even with Derek Carr.
Yeah, because we
right?
know Jimmy's not the best, deep ball thrower. Like Davante in terms like contested catches, down the field. He's as good as anyone there, and it's just like I don't think Jimmy's giving him the same opportunities. So
Davante's going to have to be a volume monster out of the slot, which he totally can, right? But again, volume monster out of the slot screams Amon-Ra St. Brown, not Davante Adams. And while we love both players, one is wide receiver 1 and one is wide receiver 8, 9, 10, which are great.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
I think I'd rather have Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, that offense in general is going to be one that I tread carefully. Like that's going to be about value for me. It's like where can I get them? I'm not overpaying. Yeah, Josh Jacobs, absolutely.
That's great. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball with Jimmy.
Davante for the price that he was last year, like I wouldn't do it. We'll see though. I don't know. Yeah, that offense in general, you could put them all stock down aside from Josh Jacobs, in my opinion.
Yeah. That is it. Fantasy stock up, stock down. Aidan, we covered a lot of good stuff. We barely talked about the Bears. We didn't talk about DeAndre Swift. Good for us.
I thought about it.
I didn't talk about Khalil. I didn't talk about Khalil Herbert, which is good. I probably have already hit my Khalil Herbert quota for the month of March. This is going to be fun, and we have the NFL draft coming up. This is going to be great. The Bears are going to win the draft. It's going to be
we've got a month left, but until then, we've got another month to just keep debating these bargain bin ads and how it's going to absolutely transform fantasy football. So,
the Odell Beckham recruitment will end hopefully in the next week or so.
He can't keep getting away with this gif. Like it has to stop. Just someone sign him. Aaron move. I want to stop talking about both Aaron Rodgers and Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you haven't yet, go ahead, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and Apple. If you haven't left a review, go ahead and do it. If you like fantasy football in general, share us with your friends, share us with loved ones. Come on, we're not giving away any secrets just yet. You can keep us as your edge going into draft season. It's okay. If you haven't followed us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you know what to do, at RTM Fantasy. If you're still listening, we appreciate you. RTM wouldn't be anything without you. Go touch some grass, please. Go hug a loved one. Enjoy your weekends. Aidan, thanks for joining, man. We always appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks as always, Shaun. Always a pleasure.